Welcome back, everybody. Chad Ferguson here, catfishedge.com. I use monofilament fishing line for the majority of my fishing, but I do use braid on some occasions. I feel like braided fishing line is probably one of the most overused pieces of fishing tackle that there is when it comes to catfish. I think a lot of people use it just because they think they need to, and it's great, but there's a time and a place for it. You don't need to automatically default to using braid just because you think you need to, but there are some times where braid is a great choice. I like to use braid if I'm fishing in really heavy timber, and I also like to use braid if I am power drifting or suspend drifting, control drifting, whatever you want to call it, where I'm generally fishing in deeper water with the lines straight down. Reason being is that braid has a much smaller profile, it's much thinner, it doesn't catch as much water, so it has tendency to stay straight up and down more than monofilament would when you're drifting like that with your baits suspended. Fishing in rivers with heavy current, braid is a great choice for the same reason. If you are going to use braid, one of the most important things that you need to remember when you're spooling it is that you can't spool braid like you spool monofilament, where with monofilament fishing line you just tie it right on the spool of the reel and then spool the reel up. If you do that with braid, you're going to have problems and the line is going to slip on the fishing reel spool. So what you have to do is put some sort of backer on the fishing reel when you spool the braided line. What I like to do is fill the spool of the reel up with about a third full of monofilament fishing line and then wrap that in electrical tape really good. Once you've done that, then you're going to tie your braid to the spool around that monofilament line and spool your braid on there. Now remember, if you're going to do that, you want to make sure, if you're using braid and you're spooling it, to really make sure you spool that braid really tight onto that reel. So that's how you spool braided fishing line. You want to make sure that you get a real good backer on that line. Monofilament with electrical tape is what I like to use. Some people just put electrical tape on the spool, but I like to have that monofilament on there because it helps to fill that spool up, and you can put the braid around the outside of it. And I've always found that if the spool of the reel is more full, you generally get better performance out of your fishing line when you're casting and retrieving.